So, as discussed, my name is Aislinn Green. I'm an Agile coach. I have been since around 2005, working mostly across Europe and the UK and Ireland. More recently, a lot with the US. So working a lot on the East Coast of the US. My passion is, as Manu said there, was about how you embrace agility to meet your goals. So really interested in helping people understand what their goals are, really getting to know what they're talking about, and then how they can meet those through agility. So what I'm currently reading at the minute, or actually rereading, is the book Mindset. If you haven't read it before, I would thoroughly recommend it. So it's by Carol Dweck. I don't know if I'm saying her surname correctly there. Dweck. Very good. I'm from a huge family, so I have 4 brothers and 4 sisters. So I am giving you this warning that I talk a lot. So I want this to be interactive. I want you guys to ask questions. I want to hear your thoughts and opinions, because you guys all have experience as well that we can bring into this. Does that sound okay?
That would be amazing if they sent over some shit and we were like, yep, everything was good.
Okay. Good stuff. I see a few thumbs up there. Okay. So what we're going to go through today is we're going to do just a little bit of a scene setting. Then we're going to get used to do some work, because I've done a full day's work already too. So I want you guys to work as well here. So we're going to break down into smaller groups and get some of your insights on things that you've done to make your retrospectives successful in the past. And also to find out what are some of the challenges that you're having. Because if you guys are having some challenges, then what we want to do is see how we can help address them through the conversation in this session. And then we're going to go through some techniques that we can use to help the team really build a picture, a shared understanding of the time period they're looking back over, how to really get down to the insights that they're trying to share, and then come up with actions that they want to do as a result of that retrospective. And of course, given everybody's current position, we'll talk a wee bit about some remote tips that we can use. All right, are we all good so far? Yeah. Perfect. Okay. So I am going to try to get everybody just to say one word for me. And I don't need an explanation, but I just want you to call out which emoji you're feeling right now. So which emoji most closely represents how you're feeling at the minute.
Happy.
All right. Happy. Okay, thank you.
Sleepy.
Sleepy. Okay. We'll have to watch for you.
Excited.
Excited. Great. Happy.
That's not on there.
Happy.
Sorry.
I'm going to say sleepy too.
Sleepy. Perfect. Thank you, Kieran. Anyone else?
I didn't say excited. Aislinn, can I change mine?
You can change yours to excited.
excited.
Of course you can. Be precisely correct. Anybody else want to share how they're feeling? I'm feeling hungry. I haven't had my dinner.
Confused.
Confused. Okay, good. Anyone else? No, we're good round robin there. Okay, so we've got some people a bit confused, a lot of happy people, some sleepy people. Okay, we'll see if we can keep you awake throughout this next hour that we're talking. Okay, so what we're going to try now is, and what we're trying to do in this workshop as well, is to introduce some techniques that you can use with your teams. So the first one is the call out. The second one is we're going to try some annotation. So on Zoom, there is an annotate facility. So if you go to the top of your Zoom board, you will see a little pen that says annotate. So there we go, somebody's already in it. So what I want you to do is go in, select the annotate. You can select the text if you want to do nice neat writing, or if you like to freehand it, just use the draw. And then just do a one-word summary for how you feel about retrospectives. So how do they make you feel at the minute?
I'm on my phone. Actually, how do you get into that?
Do you want to put it in a message and I'll put it on the screen for you?
Yep.
Cool. You can just send it to me in a message, then I'll see it. I don't know how to do it on a phone. Don't know if it's actually possible.
Yeah, it doesn't look like it.
Cool. I love all the freehanders here. Everybody's going for it. Oh, look, even a smiley face too. Neutral, nervous, tricky, great but tough sometimes, can be fun. They're awesome and often misunderstood. Great. Uncomfortable. Okay. Great. Everybody finished writing? Okay, so uncomfortable, nervous, tricky, can be fun, tough, they're great but can be tough, awesome but often misunderstood. So some of those things I want you to think about is why you've written some of these parts there within that. Like, why did you select the word that you selected? And so what we're going to do is take that off. Clear. Yes. Okay, so I want you to think about why you selected that word. And then we're going to try a little breakout into rooms. Okay, so we're going to break out into maybe 2 rooms, Manu, if that's okay.
Yeah.
And this is where really I want you guys to think about, well, what are some of the things? So for people who were written who fed back that they find it good, or they found they're awesome but often misunderstood, have a think about what makes your retrospective successful. So what are some of the things that contribute them being really good or really successful? But then for the nervous or the can be fun, like what can get in the way? So what are some of the challenges that you have with retrospectives at the minute? What are some of the things you encounter? So what we're going to ask you to do is we're going to ask you to break out into your breakout rooms. We're going to put 5 minutes on the clock. We will ask you to use the whiteboard functionality in your breakout room, just so that you can capture the thoughts. And then have one person nominated from each of your breakout rooms to present back. Now, I did warn you in advance that I would expect some work to be done, so I hope that's okay. So we're going to break out to the breakout rooms. Use your board, have a chat amongst your group. We'll have a quick 5 minutes. If you could answer those 2 questions, things that make your retrospective successful and some of the challenges that you have with retrospectives, so that we can spend some further time exploring those. And then one person from your team will present back. And does that all sound good?
Yeah, maybe I can start. Just to
yeah, perfect.
So yeah, we about the first question about what are we doing to make them successful. The 3 points that we shortly discussed was engagement, and to try to make as part of that, try to make it fun and very interactive. To be clear, what is the purpose of the retrospective? That is a place to learn and not to punish. So it's a place to reflect.
Okay. Okay, great.
Yeah, and then on the second point, what are some of the challenges you are having that we can explore further in this workshop? some of the challenges was to bring people's personality into the retrospective, and yeah, that meant basically how to do retrospectives with teams that have a majority of introvert people.
Okay.
And the other challenge was that sometimes the team was looking a bit too much at the environment where they are, and basically putting sorry, I don't like the word blame, but blaming the environment, and in particular, the example was kind of other parts of the organization, rather than reflect on what the team can do, what is in the on the remit, on the power remit of the team.
Oh yeah, great stuff. That's in their remit. Perfect.
That's it.
Yeah, perfect. Thank you very much. Rodrigo, is it? Is that
Augusto?
Augusto? Sorry.
That's fine. That's fine.
For some reason, your name has disappeared from the top of the screen. Okay, so thank you. Would one of the other rooms like to share what they discussed in the room?
Actually, I can go for the room I was in. So we said successful would have been psychological safety. People are not reprimanded and people are heard. Another successful one would be if we ran into a roadblock and we found a resolution to that roadblock. Successful would also be that it wasn't overly structured and we followed the comments from the team. Then I think it was Marina said that when a sprint had gone well, usually that meant it was always, the retrospective would usually go quite well. And then the last person we had, I think it was Manuel, said, he said to keep a successful retrospective would be to keep it fresh and fun. Then challenges we would have would be if we did run into a problem that we weren't able to find a resolution. If a sprint hadn't gone that well, then there would be a temptation to finger point and say that was your fault, or if people would get their back up and go, who can we blame for this? I think that's what we said. Yeah, challenges where when it wasn't a roaring success, and then people were kind of a little bit hesitant in the retrospective, and it will feel like, well, I was blaming Marina for it going wrong, or Marina was blaming me, stuff like that.
Okay, perfect. Thank you very much, Kieran. And what about our third room? Who was in? Which room hasn't talked yet? I think room 1. Who was in room 1? Anya, Enrico, Gilda, or
Yeah, I don't think we delegated anyone, to be honest. So there was a bit of a mixed conversation. So what did we say about successful? To be honest, there's a lot of the stuff in there probably already that we talked about.
Mm-hmm.
So some of the stuff is similar. We talked a little bit about the tools as well that you use. I think it was more about the tool can help you, but it can be more complex than just using the tool itself. But it's I guess selecting the right tool.
Yeah.
In terms of challenges, there was something about as well. I think there was a mention as well about sometimes when you have the line manager in the room.
That's a good one. Yeah, it's a good one. So are you saying people maybe don't feel open to speak, or what would that be? What would be the challenge in it? Open.
That's right. Yeah. So people not being open, and the other one I mentioned was around, if you don't know all the team members well enough, you can be a bit uncomfortable because then you don't really know how do you prompt, I guess, the questions. How do you prompt people to actually start the conversation so that they can share?
Okay, thank you. Perfect. Thank you very much.
I think I was gonna say, I think those are the ones I can remember, but I'm sure I've missed a few. So feel free for the other guys to jump in.
Yeah, does anybody else from room 1 want to share to the main group? If not, that's fine. We've got plenty there. Okay, that's our 2-second pause. Okay, no, perfect. Thank you very much, guys. That there's lots of really good stuff on there, and we'll keep these on here. So what I am actually going to ask you to do is just on the challenges, I just want to get a feel for where people are at. And let me just present here again. Sorry to make this bigger. So I want to see what's most important to this group. And a quick way that you can do that is, again, using the annotations. So everybody in the group has 3 votes. Okay, so you have 3 votes. And usually the easiest way to do this is to use the little stamp, the little check mark stamp. And you can place those votes on whatever topics that you think are most important that we would like to focus on today. So say, for example, I thought how to engage introverts, and when it goes to the blame game, and when people don't feel they know each other well enough, I could put my 3 votes over there, or I could put all 3 votes on the one thing if I'm really passionate about it. So what I want you to do is I want everybody to go in and select, oh, there you go, you're already in there doing it. Select and use your 3 votes across these, and we'll see what's the most important things for this group to talk about today. All right. If anybody has any problem with the tool, let me know. So it's just under annotate, and it's the stamp one, or you can draw it as well if you can't find it. Just put a mark beside it. Oh, someone's got lovely stars. Okay, I think in true Eurovision style, we have the votes still coming in here. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So we've got 6 on this one. So this one seems to be one of our top ones. 6. This one seems to be a top one for us.
Oh, sorry.
4. That's okay.
Sorry, I didn't mean to do that. Let me see if I can erase that. I'll probably erase everything.
Don't worry.
Whew.
Yeah.
Sorry, I've got very chubby fingers.
That's all right. You're fine. Okay, so 1, 2, and 3. Okay, we'll use these ones for our next topic. So again, this is just a quick way. It's another little technique you can use in retrospectives to find out from the group just what's the most important things for them to talk about, especially when there's a lot of topics that are coming up. You can just use a quick vote, whatever tool you're using. If you're in the room, you can do it just with a pen and get people to go up and vote for it. Okay. So our top 3 are bring people personalities. So how do we engage people according to their personality styles? The putting the blame on external, and actually, goes under the blame game. So perfect. I'm going to clear that in a minute. So that's why I had to write it down. All right, perfect, because it'll go onto the next screen. Great, thank you. So we'll remember that for the next one. Perfect. Okay, thank you for your input there, guys. Okay. Right, so just want to do a quick check and see where we're at. So we've begun to apply a retrospective structure in our session today. Has anybody read the book Agile Retrospectives by Esther Derby and Diana Larson? No? A few people, a few nods?
No?
Yeah.
I would thoroughly recommend it. It's an oldie but a goodie. It's been around a long time. And really the structure that it gives in that book is something that I use consistently, whatever size of retrospective that I'm running, regardless of how many teams are involved. I will use this structure to help sort of guide the team through to helping them to come up with actual outcomes or actions from the retrospective. Because quite often what we find is people go in and you may go into that blame game cycle or people just complaining about what's going on. So here what we want to do is make sure that we move productively through and steer the conversation to an outcome rather than just let it dwell in that area. Okay, so in our session today, we did the set the stage with the emojis and the one-word summary. Now, there's lots of different techniques to use in that setting the stage, but what you want to try to get out of that is basically to get everybody talking. So that's why I asked you to all say one word, because the sooner you talk in a workshop, the more likely you are to speak. The longer it is before someone actually speaks, the less likely it is that they'll actually speak up or get involved, especially if they're more introverted. Okay, so the longer you leave it before they actually talk, the less likely it will be for that. So you can use things like your one-word summary, emojis. There's also lovely little techniques that get people being a bit more creative. Like if this sprint was a car, what kind of car would it be? Or if it was an animal, what kind of an animal? Or if you were doing a movie themed one, you can put your best quote from the movie. So again, it's some of those things you can just bring in and set that stage and try to find out where the team are at. How are they feeling about this? Then after we set that stage, we want to move on and we want to actually build that shared picture. So we want to gather some data and build that shared picture of what the that sprint or the iteration or whatever it is we're working on. Perfect. Yeah, thank you very much, Enrico. The Retromat has a great repository as well. Yeah, it's another great tool that you can use. So in the Gather data, you guys went into the breakout rooms, you brainstormed a few questions, what was working and what wasn't working, just phrased a wee bit differently. So we can use just simple things like that, or we can use a lot more sort of engaging or fun ways to do it, which I'll cover just in a minute. And then once you get that data without the insights really isn't that useful. So we need to spend time just digging down into really learning about the insights of it. What exactly does that mean? How do people feel about it? What's the facts around it? And then from those insights, we need to generate actions and decide what to do. Okay, so again, this is our way to help us flow through and make sure that our retrospectives are being productive. Are there any questions? No? Okay. All right, so in our Gather data, as I said, we're building a shared picture, and there's lots of ways we can do this. So we can bring in some data. So this could be quantitative data, such as any of your burn down charts, your metrics charts, your cumulative flows. Again, anything that you might have from your builds, your servers, or if you're in a non-technical world, we might use some feedback or customer insights or anything else. There's also a nice little, so I have a lot of teams who by the time they come to the retrospective go, oh, I don't remember what happened in the sprint. It's so long ago. So they may not know exactly what happened in the sprint. So you can actually have this is a waste snake is what we call this little top picture that we have here. And basically in that, it's as people encounter frustrations or wastes throughout the iteration or sprint, they're putting it up there and saying, yeah, okay, this happened here. This is what the scenario was. So it helps them to build that picture. Okay, I don't know how to turn off annotate so people can't annotate. Oh, somebody was drawing a snake, sorry. Sorry, I only realized that. I thought you did it by mistake. Yep, so we have our waste snake. I'm annoyed because someone's annotating. So you want to bring in data, but you can also gather data within the room, and you want to include that conversation. And I'm sure people have seen techniques before, like the sailboat, you know, and the sailboat's one that comes in, you know, Retromats will have it. You'll also have it in Miro, Mural. All of those have ideas for retrospectives too. I see Manu's put up tasty cupcakes. Perfect. Yep. I actually have that as a link at the end too. It's one of my favorite sites to go to. They do not make cupcakes, people. They give you lots of good ideas for activities that you can run with your teams. I've seen teams do excellent retrospectives all based around a movie theme. So if your team are, maybe have movie buffs in your team or sports people in your team, and this is where my sports analogies are going to get really bad, so I'm not even going to pretend to go down that route. But you can base your whole retrospective around that theme just to get people thinking a bit differently. And that's what you're trying to do. You're trying to shift people into that system 2 thinking, where they're not just giving you their automatic response, where they're actually thinking about what they're saying to you. So they're not just going, everything was good, everything was bad. Funnily enough, someone just mentioned before the things that are within their control, and they maybe focus too much on the things that are outside of their control. There's another great technique called the circle in the soup. For anybody who hasn't heard of that one before, basically the circle is things that are within your control, and the soup is everything that sits outside of the team's control. And what that can really help you to do is focus on, well, what's the things we can change? What's those things that sit in the circle? And what's in the soup? What's the things like, we know that this is a problem, we have to take it to the organizational level, but we don't need to expend all of our effort or energy today on that. So it helps people to focus and they really hone down on that. So in this Gallup data, this is just some of the very, very small ways. There's another link at the end. I think I put fun retrospectives, has lots of ideas as well. And the most important thing is mix something that will resonate with your team. Okay, so it's making sure that whatever technique you're using will actually hit with the people that you're using it with. So I remember one of our Scrum Masters loves films and was doing, I'm going to do a Rocky retrospective, the film Rocky. And he had a lot of very young people on his team who had never seen Rocky. So it didn't quite hit the mark and people weren't too sure who was any of the characters in it. So just put a bit of thought into it, think about what your team and where they're at, and what do they like, what gets them interested or excited, and try to even theme your retro around that. Oh, there you go. Enrico was saying he has a template in Miro for the circle in the soup. Great stuff. Perfect. It's always good to reuse those templates. So Gallup data, so many techniques, but really think about the way that you want to do that. And if you're theming your retrospective around a particular thing, use the appropriate technique within it. Okay. So top tips: vary the way you collect the data, keep it fresh and interesting, and use techniques that ensure all participants have a voice. So if you have a lot of very dominant personalities on your team, that, like myself, I would talk a lot. You want to be thinking about, how do I make sure that I give everybody else that equal voice? And this really comes down to your facilitation tools. So the tools and techniques that you have in your back pocket. So having things like where you can do silent writing, where people can put up ideas onto a board. And that will give people some of the time to make sure that they think about the responses that they're putting for the people who are maybe quieter. So you can do silent writing. You can also do round robin, where everybody has that opportunity to speak. So vary up your techniques in the room. Just don't ask the question out and expect people to just give it back. Because what you'll find, I was on a retrospective last week, just done to sort of coach the Scrum Master, and the team were very quiet and they weren't using anything to visualize the sprint or the retrospective. And it was just like, so how did it go for everybody? And just silence. And you felt for him, and it's like, everybody's like, nobody talks. So nobody had on the camera and nobody talked. And it was one of those awkward ones. I think someone put that at the start. It was awkward, and it felt awkward, and it started to feel more awkward for people. And so what we said, so I was sort of giving them hints in the background, going, change it up. Ask people to put it in the chat, because maybe they're not comfortable talking. So just making sure that you are flexible enough that you can adapt to the situation that presents itself as well.
Can I add something to this,
Yeah, perfect.
Aislinn? Yeah, I was actually talking to a colleague a few days ago about this, and I was, and I was thinking how this is also like tied a lot to the cultural aspects, right? So, possibly that I am originally from Italy, and I've been living in the UK now 7 years. So now my kind of issue is getting people to talk in retros, as opposed to when I do it in Italy, is getting people to shut to shut up. So you have very different challenges, right? So there you need to kind of make sure to kind of elicit contribution, and here you need to make sure that you don't have too many people talking at the same time.
Yeah, that's perfect, and that's a perfect example. And we probably all have teams that have people from different cultures on it as well, so you're going to have that culture clash as well happening. So you may have very dominant people speaking up on the calls, and and that's what I'm saying, think about the technique that you're using, and also, for example, maybe don't use, if you are going down the whole movie theme, I quite like the Star Wars. Star Wars tends to be pretty universal. But maybe if you pick a very niche Irish film, not a lot of people are going to understand that one. But, or very niche Italian film, again, probably not a lot of people will get that in their room. So try to think about the techniques that you're using. And I think someone mentioned this as a challenge earlier, not knowing your team. You can even use your retro to get to know your team a bit better, so you could switch it up and go, guys, we can do a retro based on our styles of being engaged, how we like to engage with each other and how we like to talk to each other. That's something we've done in our team, because there was a bit of frustration about how people were getting on. And what it turned out is we have some people who are very, very opinionated, very loud. Some people, that's me putting my hand up, by the way. And then we have people who are a lot quieter and just needed that space to think. So we actually talked about this in the room, and we talked about what was the best way for people to engage each other and how we respected that. And the outcome of that retrospective was an update to our working agreements. So remember, not all retrospectives have to just be on how the last sprint went. If there's other problems coming up, theme them on something else. Phil, did you want to ask a question?
Yes, Aislinn. So I did try the car retrospective in a team that apparently didn't know very much about cars. So just be careful with that one. But I did have a question. So let's say you use a whiteboard and you get 8 or 9 suggestions, and you have 10 minutes left on the retro meeting.
Mm-hmm.
We often find that happens, right? And you as a scrum master have got to decide which topics to talk about. Is there any advice of that? Because someone might have put something up on the board that they're really boiling underneath their skin about, that they really feel strongly about, and someone else on the team might have just put something up for the sake of putting something up.
Mm-hmm.
Is there any way to gauge how strongly, I suppose, people feel it?
Yeah.
Would you ever ask people to quantify that? Or
so the voting, Phil, is one of the techniques. Yeah, you can use that vote, and if somebody's really passionate, they often put their 3 votes on the one thing because they really care about it.
That's
so allowing people to do it that kind of way allows them to express that. So your voting's a great way to get that, rather than you deciding what to talk about. Take that 1 minute and ask the team, guys, this is your time because it's their time. What do they want to spend it on? If we only have 10 minutes, what's the most important thing on that board? So, you can go in and ask them. And if you give them the 3 votes, it means that they can use it all in the one thing, so they can start, they put that display on it. You can also use, I've seen people use emojis. They sort of indicate the intensity of their feeling about how this is in the generated insights. So they can use emojis to say how they felt about that particular item or event that happened. So they can use like a little normal smiley face if it's just okay, or a really big happy smiley face, or a really, really angry face as well. So you can give them sort of degrees as well to let them see how they, or let them express how they feel.
Yeah,
Is that answer your
awesome.
question?
Thanks.
No bother.
Yeah, 100%. Thank you, Ashley.
No bother. Rico, did you have a wee question?
No, just like resonated what you said about the different cultures, and some people like keeping camera off for bandwidth issues. So like the internet speed is low, or for maybe that case of cultural reasons. So yeah, being flexible, I think that makes a lot of sense. And I think, I guess what the last question was about the last 10 minutes. I always try to, I like that you're talking about this 5-step framework, because very often retrospectives are the activity, like the sailboat retrospective or the 4Ls retrospective, versus there are 5 steps, and those activity fit in one of the steps, one or more of the steps. That really has been a success in the retrospectives I run. And the last 10 minutes, I try to keep them for feedback on how was the retrospective, and I will clear on the next steps. I'm sure we're going to get there, since we're only at Gather Data. But great so far.
Yeah, no, well, hopefully we will. Yeah, so good stuff. Thank you very much. Yeah, so as you said, those are just the first, these are steps on it. And this is why that structure sort of helps to guide you through, so you don't get stuck on one of them. So once you've gathered that data, you need to get some insights from it. And this is where we want to use a technique to sort of go, well, why did that happen? What is the underlying root causes of it? So really try to understand the emotions and the facts that it came up with. And again, there's lots of techniques you can apply here. These are some of the techniques I would use most regularly. Looking for patterns of things that are regularly coming up. So is there a pattern developing over the cards that people have put up there, or the information people have shared? If we've identified some key problems, can we do some root cause analysis, either through the fishbone diagram? So the fishbone diagram, if people don't know about that, it's something that helps you to look at a problem from different perspectives and help to really drill down on those different perspectives and say, well, what's the root cause of why that happened? And you could look at it from a people side, a process side, an organizational structure side. So you could put different lenses on that problem, and it helps you explore it from that different perspectives. A really useful technique. Again, another old technique, but it's something that I find extremely useful in lots of situations and circumstances. And then your 5 whys as well. 5 whys, another fantastic technique, but you do not ask why 5 times, okay? That's really cute when you're a child and you go, why? As an adult, it's quite frustrating if someone just keeps asking you why repeatedly. So we always contextualize the whys that we're asking. What you're trying to do is you're really just trying to peel off that next layer. So this is really actively listening and really trying to understand what's that next layer down of that problem, and to really get to that real root cause of that real problem from looking at it. So using those techniques just to try to give you different perspectives to understand the root causes of that problem. And going back to what Rico said, this is probably where I would spend most of my time in a retrospective, is really trying to understand that problem. So you do capture the data, but this is where the magic happens for me. This is how you get it impactful. If you mine that data for the facts and the emotions, and then can really just get the true understanding of the problems out of it, then that's how you're going to actually make it much more impactful as you come in. And there you go. Yeah.
Can I share something about this? So there are 2 things that I want to share about this. So the one, the house, what's the name again? The fishbone, is that the right name, right? The one in the mid causes and yeah. So that one I've used it it's in my experience it's very effective when you do like stuff like after an incident, a production bug, or like troubleshooting stuff. And you want to see like how do we make sure that doesn't happen again. That I found that very useful, along line with the timeline also, to kind of see the events, how they unfolded, and and start thinking, next time where can we improve. And the hats, I've used it. It's actually I really like it. It's from the six hats.
Six thinking hats. Yep.
Yeah, from the Bono. This one I found it very useful when you have teams where people tend to keep the same stance, right? So you have the pessimistic person that is always, always wearing the black hat, and they're always one saying, "Oh, it's not going to happen. Oh, it's not so easy. Oh, yes, but," and then you have other people that are very optimistic, and this kind of gives them the opportunity to try and exchange and change their stance. And I found that this actually make them think not only about the retro topic, the improvement, but also the kind of usual stance that they have, and sometimes it pushes that outside and experimenting other approaching, right? So I had a team where after this retro, they were talking to each other and say, "Come on, put your green hat now. Don't always be black," right? So I found it very useful. Just wanted to share this.
Yeah, thank you very much, Manny. It's another great technique. And as you say, it gives permission for people to see things from a different perspective. And that's permission for themselves, not permission from a external lens, but permission for themselves to step outside of where they would normally be. And that's very much from the improv world. That actually putting on a hat can help you to change your perspective. And the way they initially said to do this was to actually change the color of your hat, is to have these different color hats, because that physical ritual of putting on the hat is part of the getting into the mindset or the space for it. But yeah, it's another excellent technique. Phil and Rico, you both have up your hands. Do you have questions still, or?
Apologies, I didn't lower my hand.
Oh, it's all right.
Yeah, I was like, just a word on insights. Totally agree on that. This is where the gold is in a retrospective. Very often I see it skipped. I don't know what other people on this call think about generating insights, but it's very often skipped, very often brushed on. And it's really where we go away from the habitual thinking, and we let give group time to reflect on what's in front of us. I like a combination of the infinite whys or the infinite hows and the fishbone. So there are always multiple causes and multiple whys. Often 5 whys can land into a very linear thinking of like, oh, root cause and effect. And very rarely in a human system, we have such a direct connection. So yeah, generating insights is another moment where it's interesting to ask the group, I guess in kind of in terms is this complicated, clear, complex, chaotic, what are we dealing with? And in the next step, decide what to do. Dealing with different kind of problems require different kind of actions. So very often we treat everything as solvable, everything as linear, when maybe it's more adequate to, and this is the step to do that. Very often though we miss it. So it's great that we're talking about it.
Perfect. No, great. Thank you very much, Rico. It's exactly right. This is where the magic happens, is spending the time. And there's so many techniques. This is just a few ones listed up. If anybody's familiar with any design thinking techniques, a lot of the techniques that we use in the generate ideas can be used in here as well, or in the understanding the problem can be used in here as well. So, really just digging down there in that area too. You just want to get people to actually start thinking about, well, what's the actual problem underneath, or the actual problems? Because as you say, there's usually more than one thing contributing, because we don't live in this nice little, everything's black or white, everything. There's lots of shades of grey as we go through. Thank you very much for sharing. Great. Okay, so we are going to do a quick breakout, and what I'm going to ask you to do is I'm going to get us to break just into 2 groups this time. I think we've got about 12 people, so if we can just break to 2 groups, if that would be okay. And I will send out the challenges, and what I want you guys to do is just do a little bit of insights into why you think some of these things happen. All right, so I'll put up the 3 challenges we chose there, and we'll just take 5 minutes and just think through, well, what are some of the real root causes of why we think this happens in retrospectives. So you can use one of the techniques we talked about, or you can use a technique that you like yourself. Okay, so you can use one of the techniques we talked about, or use something that you like yourself. If you do think of any actions to address them, of some of the techniques we did talk about, that's great. But don't worry about if you don't get to that area. I'd rather see you get to some of the understanding of the problems or why these things happen. So again, 5 minutes, we'll do a quick recap back at the end of it. Is that clear to everybody, what I'm asking? Yeah?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep.
All right. Okay, so Manu, if you can break them into 2 groups there for me. And
Yeah,
I will
done.
put the questions, great stuff. If we want to start it off, and I'll set a timer for 5 minutes.
And Aislinn, the challenges,
yeah,
are they awesome? Thank you.
Yeah, I'm going to put them in the broadcast message, if that's okay. So
Perfect.
you can pick which one you want to talk about. Okay.
I think we were bouncing around the people not contributing space, and I think we were like debating, is there a root cause? It's like there is probably not a single root cause. It's really like finding out why people are like refraining from contributing. Where is that coming from? Where has that person worked in the past? What team? How was he or she treated? How were their contribution used? And so I think probably coming in with a lot of empathy for that and giving space. Someone suggested maybe like having offline gathering data so that people have more time to reflect and do that. Also like switching between open conversation, like direct questions, and like we did here in the chat, or annotations, or any ways to kind of like go on and off from one and the other can help bringing these people in, and ultimately, making sure that there is full participation and mutual understanding of what's happening in the group.
Yeah, I think that's a great point that you made there about you don't know why. There's lots of underlying causes of why someone might not contribute in a retro. They may feel disenfranchised. They could just be quiet. They could just be having a bad day, because we all have them some days. So, it's about trying to have that empathy. I think that's a great understanding of where they're coming from. Good stuff. What about the Rolling Stones?
Oh, hello, me again. So we had a similar thing of what to what Enrico mentioned. So we were talking about blaming, and the thing that we discussed was that usually if the blame is directed inside the team, kind of between the team members, that maybe doing something so that people can know a bit more about each other. That usually reduce. Oh, sorry about that. That usually reduces the aggressiveness, maybe when we see other people as people and not as objects. So that was one. And sorry, I'm trying to recall what else we discussed.
That's right. Some people want to help them out. Kieran, did you want to say something, or you just?
No, I think that was what we pretty much what we discussed. I think a few of us came up with different scenarios. I think Jimmy mentioned when the teams were forming, storming, and norming, especially at the start, it was about getting to know the person, the different personalities, and understand why a person, sees things one way versus see things another way. And I think Augusto kind of hit the nail on the head. I was like, and probably the same as the first group is, it's understanding, kind of not seeing them as an object's probably not the right word, but seeing them as people and personalities, and not just resources in there to do a job, and then figuring out, as you say, why somebody is the way that they are. Like, I know I had a project before where somebody was very, very vocal on the project, but the reason they were vocal on the project is because they had created the original version and we were just updating it, and this was the last project they were going to be on before they left the company. So they wanted to be, it was like their baby, and they were very precious about it, but they were very, very vocal on calls, and would have been quick to blame others if things went wrong. But again, once we understood that's where she was coming from, I think it made it easier for us to work with her. But I think the guys hit it in the head. Once trying to get to understand, or to get to know that person and how they tick and whatnot, certainly helps.
Yeah, great. And remember, your retrospective can just be on getting to know each other. You can base your whole retrospective on that. Like, how do we gather data about each other? How do we share insights about each other? You can base your whole retrospective on that as well. So, especially if you've got brand new teams, you can theme have them around a specific topic. So don't always feel it has to be just on how the last sprint or iteration went. It can be on these particular areas that you're looking at. Great points,
Okay.
folks.
Thanks.
Thank you very much for sharing, everybody. Okay, so always talk too much. Warned you about this at the start. So some top tips on generate insights. Give the team enough time to get to the right level of conversation. You really want to get to the root cause of problems. So as Enrico really well pointed out, there's often multiple reasons that things happen. And it does take time for people to start to digging down and understand that. And if a technique isn't working, don't be afraid to change it. Okay, so if you're trying to do your generate insights one way and it's just not hitting the mark with the team, don't be afraid to change it up. So always have, as a facilitator, something else in your back pocket, just in case you're not getting that level of participation that you're wanting today. So have that read the room, make sure you're seeing what's the feeling like. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Yep.
All right.
Yep.
Good stuff. Oh. I don't know why this doesn't go back. Sorry, 2 seconds. Just had it. There's a wee delay, and then I had no patience. So once you have your insights and actions coming out of that, then you do want to make sure that you select the actions that are most important to take forward as a team. So what are the most important things that matter to the team that we want to take actions on to follow up? So again, asking the team to vote on that, coming up with actions or stories that you might want to add to the backlog, but make sure they are concrete, whatever you're taking away. So it could be that you're updating a working agreement if it's something around getting to know each other. It could be that you're going to change a process, which could be an action that you're doing. It could be that we need to change something in our delivery or in our product, and therefore it might be a story. But make sure that you're capturing that item so that you're able to follow it up. So you don't want to leave going, oh, okay, yeah, great, we all talked and we all found out why things happen, but we're not doing anything about it. You want to make sure that there's a concrete action and around that to address it. Whatever's the right format or way to capture that, just make sure you're spending that time and going, okay, is everybody clear on that? Do we have someone who's going to hold us to account on that? It's always nice to make sure that there's someone there to say, hey guys, I'll be your conscience. I'll hold you to account on it. And just make sure that we do follow through. And then always spend your time to close your retro. Take the time to thank people for their participation. Again, it leaves on that nice note, and to get feedback for yourself as a facilitator, because nobody is perfect. We're all works in progress, and there's always things that we can do to improve. So one way that I like to end is a bouquet, and not literally getting flowers, but just if there's somebody who's done something nice, and it has to be genuine and heartfelt, you don't go, oh, I want to thank you for being you. It's not that kind of bouquet. it's going to be something that, you know, if someone's helped you out maybe during the last sprint or the last iteration, and you just want to thank them for that time they took, or someone explained something to you, this is a nice way to say that in front of people. We used to have a little kudos box in our corner of the office, where if someone did something nice during the time box, then somebody would put it in the box, and at the end of the sprint we would read them out. And it's always a nice way to end it off. So your bouquets or kudos. And then you do want to get your feedback, and you can get your feedback in multiple ways. So sometimes it can be a return on time invested. So how do people feel that this was useful or productive use of their time? So if they found it was negative, or do you know what, it was fine, it was break even, or yeah, it was wonderful and it was a great use of my time. Or you can just give very quick feedback on what helped you to explore your problems or what hindered you during this. Again, try to make sure you're getting feedback that you can action. Okay, so you know, if people are giving you a certain thing, so if it was brilliant, what was good about it? What could we do more of? And if it wasn't so good, why wasn't it? What can I do less of? You know, and one of those things. Phil, do you have a wee question?
There's a question
yes.
from Phil. Yeah.
Yep. So at the minute on my retros, I do something like the bouquet system. At a certain stage, I'll ask the team if there's anyone else on the team that they would like to recognize for their help during the last sprint. And what tends to happen is that different people will then start coming forward to say, I'd like to recognize Tom, I'd like to recognize Mary, etc. I've never actually used the bouquet system. Would you recommend keeping some kind of a league table of that, or would that come across too corny with teams? Or
do you know what?
Anyone has any experience with that?
I would say you have to know your team. You don't want it to be a competition either, because we all know what happens when that competitive element comes in. People start going, oh, you give me a good bouquet this sprint and I'll give you a good bouquet the next sprint. Just be careful what behavior something is driving. But for some teams, maybe it's a bit of fun. Again, you have to know your team and what kind of behaviors that would drive. Because I remember we used to have a thing where you had to buy chocolate if you were late for so many meetings in a sprint. And one guy just put in £10 at the start of the sprint and says, yeah, I'm going to be late every day. not the best approach. So again, you need to think about what's the right way and what kind of behaviors is that encouraging within it.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm thinking maybe clear it every keep a table, but clear it every 2 or 3 sprints.
Again, it depends what you want to do with it, or how you want to use it as a team. So think about what you want to do with that data, or how you want to use it, and always check it with the team. Is it something that they find useful or beneficial? Yeah.
Okay. Thanks, Ashley.
All right, no bother. So very quickly, I've got about 7 minutes left. So some top tips on remote: take breaks and sessions longer than an hour. I know I didn't do it in this one, so I'm not practicing what I preached today. But typically when we run longer sessions, we try to give people a comfort break so they can go and get a drink of water or a comfort break within it. Change up your activities regularly. Again, I think someone mentioned this earlier, you know, try to have a few different ways of engaging people throughout. It keeps them active, it keeps them alert. If you just ask the same thing again and again, you're just going to get the same answers again and again. Introduce breakout activities, especially in anything larger than, you know, 6 or 8 people. You want to start breaking down into smaller groups. If you're up at 8 or 10 people, you want to try to break that down. Especially for the quieter or more introverted people, you tend to find they'll talk a lot in groups. That's actually one of the techniques I brought in with the team I was talking about last week. Was they now have breakouts where there's lots of conversation, and as soon as they come back to the main room, it's really quiet. So just make sure that you you can give them that space to do that. Thanks very much, Gilda. So get everyone to speak at the start. Again, if it's only one word or pass, it's perfectly fine, but it's just something to get them to talk, just to clear their lungs. And then tooling, you guys already said this, just make sure that you have the right tooling for the right approach, so that people know how to use it. Because if you're spending more time on the tooling than you are on the actual learning, you've missed the boat on that one. So always do a tech check beforehand, and make sure that everything's going to work as it should have. And then always have a beautiful assistant, as Manu is today, to help you with things like your breakout rooms and if there's any technical difficulties. So it can often help in that. And then even though we're remote, you can still have fun. So there's lots of techniques you can bring in there. All of those techniques work even on this environment. So make sure that we're building on that time for fun and learning. So very lastly, what I'm going to ask you is, how did you feel about today? And I'm going to ask you to annotate and screen. So if you're going, oh, I would have rather eaten my dinner than be here today, you can do a little tick mark on that. If you're happy enough, thanks for the tips, you can do a little tick mark on that. And if you're like, woohoo, great, you've lost the try, you can do a tick mark. Oh, great. Good. So I've missed my dinner, but woohoo. Thanks very much, folks. That's great. And I actually loved learning from you today. And I am hoping, Manu, that I can get these links that Enrico was putting up during the session, because I actually want to click on them to see the Star Wars retro. I'm looking forward to getting a look at that.
Yes. So I collect all the links that we have in the chat and share it back with you all in Meetup and LinkedIn. Yeah.
And there's just a few little websites. So Retrospectives is the book. Tasty Cupcakes is what Manu talked about. Liberating Structures, folks. Fantastic website. If you've never been on it, I'd thoroughly recommend it. And then always Google. There's just so much out there. Thank you so much for bearing with me and staying with me today. I really appreciate it. I really appreciated everybody participation as well.
Thank you.
All right.
Thank you so much.
Thanks, Aisling. Thanks a lot.
Bye.
Thanks,
Thank
everyone.
you. Have a
See
good
you.
evening.
You too.
Bye, guys.
See you.
Thanks, everyone.
Bye. Bye.
Bye now.
Thank you. Bye-bye.